There is a night that has no beginning. We can imagine it, if we are still enough, if we slow our breathing the way the darkness slows everything. A night that has always been and will always be. A night without clocks, without hours, without the measurement that daylight brings. A night that simply is. Somewhere, in a time that has no name, this was all there was. The sky was the sky. The dark was the dark. And in between, the world moved the way worlds move, slowly, without hurry, the way water moves through a river that has been there longer than memory. We do not need to name the time. We do not need to place it on a map or in a history. It is enough to feel it, the weight of a night that is simply night and nothing more. If we are very still, and tonight, perhaps, we can be very still, we can feel what that night was like, the way the darkness held everything, the way the stars, if we looked up, were the only light, the way the cold came when the sun went down and went when it returned, and no one knew why, and no one asked. This is where the story begins, not with a beginning, there is no beginning here, but with a night that was like this one, a night when someone, somewhere, was looking up at the sky the way we are looking up at it now, and wondering. Before fire, the world was dark in a way that is difficult to remember now. Not dark the way a room is dark when the lights go out. That darkness is temporary, a brief intermission before the return of illumination. This was a darkness that was not interrupted. It was the world itself. It was the shape of things. When the sun went down, the night came completely. Not the purple of dusk, not the gradual softening of light, but the full arrival of darkness, the way a wave arrives on a shore, all at once, and then everywhere. And with the darkness came the cold. We forget, in a world where warmth is always available, a dial turned, a switch pressed, a flame struck, what it meant to live without it. Cold was not a discomfort, it was a condition of the world. It lived in the ground and rose at night. It crept into the spaces where people slept, gathering them close to one another, bodies pressed to bodies, the shared heat of proximity the only defense against what the darkness brought. Without fire, there was no way to push it back. This was the condition of mortals in the time before. We have to hold this image, not a world that had lost something, but a world that had never known it. They did not feel the absence of fire the way we would feel its absence. They did not miss what they had never had. They simply lived, fully, in their way, in a world that offered them everything except the one thing that might have changed it. Above them, the gods lived differently. This is not a story about the gods, but we need to know they were there, because what happened next happened because of them. In the high places, where the sky was closer and the air was thinner and the light was something that stayed, the gods had what mortals did not. They had fire, not the fire that came from the sky and lightning, uncontrolled and brief, but fire that could be held, that could be kept, that could be carried from one place to another. It was theirs. It was part of what made them gods, and they were not interested in sharing it. This was not a cruelty, or not only a cruelty. It was order. The gods had what gods had. Mortals had what mortals had. The world was arranged the way worlds are arranged when there is a hierarchy above them, each level knowing its place, each level having what belonged to it. Zeus, who was king among them, had made this arrangement, not out of malice, or not entirely out of malice, but out of the understanding that what distinguishes the divine from the mortal must remain distinct. If mortals had what gods had, what would make mortals mortal? It was a reasonable question in the language of gods. And so the fire stayed above, and mortals lived below, in the dark, in the cold, in the condition that had no name because it did not know itself as a condition. They did not know to want what they did not have, until someone looked at them and saw that they were capable of more than they knew. There was one among the gods who looked at mortals differently. We have to imagine him as something apart, not quite like the others who sat in the high places and governed what moved below. He was of the old generation, the Titans, but he did not carry himself with the weight of that lineage. He moved among them with a kind of attention that the others did not have. Or perhaps they had it and chose not to use it. What he saw when he looked down was not what the others saw. The others saw creatures without fire, without light, without the warmth that made winter bearable and night something other than an ending. They saw beings that did not know what they were missing, that lived and died in the dark the way stones lie in rivers, without knowing the water was cold. But he saw something else. He saw that they were waiting. Not consciously. They did not know they were waiting. They did not stand in the darkness looking up at a sky full of gods and plead for what they did not have. They simply lived the way living things do, fully, without the knowledge that something else was possible. And yet, in the way they gathered near the places where the earth held heat, in the way they drew close to one another when the wind came cold from the north, in the way a child once reached toward a lightning strike and did not pull away. In all of these small gestures, he saw a question that had not yet been asked. What would it mean to give them something? Not to take from them. There was nothing to take. Not to change them. They were already what they were. But to add to them, to place before them a possibility that had not existed before. He did not decide this in a moment. That is not how it happens when someone makes a choice that will cost them everything. The decision was slow, the way all irreversible decisions are slow. It lived in him for a time that had no measurement, the way nights had no measurement before fire, only darkness and the sense that something was passing. He watched them. He watched the way they oriented their lives around the little warmth they had, the shared body heat of those who slept near one another, the way they built their shelters to catch what heat the earth still offered, the way fire itself was not unknown to them, but rare, precious, something that came from the sky and was gone before they could hold it. He saw that they were capable of more than they knew, not because they had shown him, but because he was patient enough to look. The others had stopped looking. The others had decided what mortals were and moved on. He had not. And in that looking, something changed. He began to imagine a world where they had what they did not have, not a world where they became gods. He was not foolish enough to imagine that, and perhaps that is what made him wise enough to do what he did. A world where they simply had a little more warmth when the cold came, a little more light when the dark fell, a little more time, because fire, even the smallest fire, stretched the day past its natural end. It was not a grand vision. It was not the liberation of a species. It was simply, they do not have this. They could have it. I could give it to them. And there would be a cost. He knew there would be a cost. He was not ignorant of what the others would say, what the order above would demand, what the king of the gods would decide. Zeus had not made the withholding of fire a secret. It was a rule, as clear as the separation between sky and earth. Mortals would not have what gods had. This was not cruelty, or perhaps it was, but it was also order, and order does not always distinguish between the two. He knew what would happen if he did it. And still, there is a particular quality to the choice that costs everything. It is not made in a single moment, but in the long passage before that moment, when you have seen clearly what you are about to do and what it will take from you, and you do not turn away. He did not turn away. He looked at them the way he had always looked, and he saw what he had always seen. And then, in a time that had no name, in a night that was like all other nights, he decided. He would carry the fire to them, not because he was brave, not because he was foolish, but because he had looked, and having looked, he could not unsee. Some choices are made because we are large enough to make them. Others are made because the alternative, the looking away, the forgetting, the return to the way things were, would be a smaller kind of living. He chose the larger living. He chose it knowing what it would cost. That is what we carry with us when we think of him. Not the fire itself, but the moment before the fire. The decision. The choice that was made in the dark by someone who knew the price and paid it anyway. And then the night was different. That is how it happened. Not with sound, not with confrontation, but with a shift in the quality of the darkness. Something had changed above. Something had come down. He had carried it in the way that one carries something that must not be dropped. Carefully, deliberately, through the places where the sky pressed closest to the earth. He did not run. He did not hide in the way that thieves hide. He simply moved, the way wind moves through a valley, following the path that no one else had thought to follow. The fire was small. That is important to understand. It was not a flame that lit the world. It was a point of warmth, a flicker held inside the hollow of a plant stem, the way children have always tried to carry what the sky gives and the earth takes back. He carried it the way one carries breath, carefully, without stopping, until he reached the place where they gathered. And then he gave it. That is the part of the story that changes everything. Not the getting, but the giving. He did not announce it. He did not leave it on their threshold as a gift left at a door. He placed it in their hands. He showed them what it was. He showed them how to keep it, how to feed it, how to let it grow from what the sky had given to what they could carry. The light spread slowly, not across the world at once, but from person to person, from fire to fire. The way warmth spreads when one person near you understands something you do not yet understand yourself. They had not asked for it. That is what we must remember. They did not stand with their hands open, looking up. They simply lived, the way they had always lived. And then there was something more. The cold receded from the places where people gathered. The dark became a place where light could exist alongside it. not conquered, not defeated, but shared. And then, in time, Zeus noticed. Zeus had not made the fire his by accident. It was part of what distinguished his world from theirs, and to give it away, to give it to them, was not a kindness. It was a disruption, and disruptions have consequences. He was taken to the edge of the world, where the mountains pressed against the sky and the clouds moved slow and cold. There, on a height where the wind never stopped, he was bound. Not gently, not with the care one uses when handling something precious, bound the way one binds what one does not wish to release. And there he remained. We do not need to describe what happened next in the language of pain. We only need to understand that it repeated. Night came, and with it, something shifted. The presence that had come with the dawn departed. The darkness brought what the darkness always brought. And when the light returned, so did the weight. This is what eternity feels like from the inside. Not one night, but the succession of nights. Not one morning, but the certainty of every morning. He knew what was coming. He had always known. That was part of the punishment, not just the binding, but the knowing. We must not think of him as broken by this. That is not the shape of the story. He remained what he had been, someone who looked, and having looked, could not turn away, even here, even now. He had chosen to be where he was, and he stayed in that choice the way one stays in a decision that has already been made. The cold came, the wind moved, the stars turned above a figure that did not move, and the night, as it always does, eventually came. Somewhere tonight, the fire is still burning. That is what he gave them in the end. Not just the warmth, not just the light, but the knowledge that they could hold something that had come from above, that they could keep it, that it did not have to be returned to the sky when the clouds gathered. The fire became theirs. It moved with them, from cave to shelter, from shelter to village, from village to city. It crossed water in the hands of those who learned to build boats. It climbed mountains in the arms of those who learned to build roads. It stayed awake through nights that would otherwise have been only darkness. And in staying awake, it became the thing around which human life gathered. The hearth, the place where stories were told. The center of the room that was also the center of the world. But it was more than warmth. It was time. The fire stretched the day past its natural end. It gave them hours that had not existed before. Hours for doing what could not be done in daylight. Hours for making what could not be made in the open. Hours for sitting together in the place where the light was, and feeling that the day was not yet finished. It was knowledge. The fire taught them things about the world, about stone, about metal, about the earth itself, that they could not have learned without it. The warmth that cooked their food also changed what food could be. The light that held the night at bay also revealed what lived in the shadows of things. It was not liberation. He had not freed them from what they were. They were still mortal, still bound to the cycle of seasons and years and endings. But he had given them something that was not supposed to be theirs, and in giving it, He had changed the shape of the world, and he remained where he was, on the height where the wind never stopped, knowing what he had given and knowing what it had cost. That is the bargain that was made. That is the gift that stayed. Time passed. Time always passes. In the world below, the fire he had given was still burning. In the world above, Zeus still ruled, and the order he had made remained. And on the height where the wind never stopped, the figure remained too, bound, patient, present, until one day a man came through the mountains. We do not tell his story here. That is another night, another story. But he was the kind of man who moved through the world, doing what the world needed done. And what the world needed done on that particular day, in that particular place, was this. The presence that had come every morning for longer than memory could hold needed to stop coming. The man did not fight the presence. He did not shout or threaten or demand. He simply passed through, the way a hand passes through water, and in passing through, changed what was on the other side. The chains that had held through centuries gave way. The figure on the height stood, slowly, the way one stands after a very long time of not standing. The wind was still the same wind. The sky was still the same sky. But the binding was gone, and what remained was what had always remained. The decision made in the dark, the gift that stayed in the world, the knowledge that the price had been worth paying. He did not need to leave the height. He did not need to return to the world of the gods or the world of mortals. He was free to stay or to go, and the staying and the going no longer meant the same thing they had meant before. The fire still burned below, and now he was free to rest. And the night continued. That is how the story ends, not with resolution, not with a moral, not with a lesson about what we should or should not do. The story ends the way the night begins, slowly, without announcement, the light withdrawing and the dark returning. And in the dark, something that was always there, remaining. The fire still burns, not because of what he did. Perhaps it would have come anyway, in time, the knowledge that fire could be held, that warmth could be kept. Perhaps another would have found another way, perhaps not. But he did not wait to find out. He looked, and he saw, and he gave, and the giving changed everything below. And now we return to where we began, the night, the darkness, the quiet that is not empty, but full of what is passing through it. The stars that have always been there, that will always be there, turning above a world that was changed by something that happened once, in a time that has no name. You are still here. That is enough. The story is always available to return to. The way a fire is always available to rekindle. The way a night is always available to sit in. The way a presence is always available to find again when the day has been long and the dark comes as a relief. Rest now. The night is long.